The wind arrived before the bunnies noticed. It slipped through the garden gate and hurried along the path, lifted the corner of the doormat, and sent a scatter of dry leaves skittering across the grass as though they were late for something. It rattled the runner bean poles, whispered through the rosemary, and tugged at the washing line until it sang twinkling tunes, light as morning dew. Inside the cottage, the bunnies were quietly busy. Berry was at the window, drying up his mushroom egg cup that he had used earlier that morning. He loved the little ceramic cup that became a plumptious mushroom shape when you plopped a smooth oval egg down inside. He looked out the window as he traced circles round the egg cup with a stripy drying up cloth. "The willow tree is fluttering its feathery leaves," he said. And indeed it was. Branches were wavering and swaying in an elegant dance, the silken leaves brushing the soft grass below. Roscoe looked up from the table, where he was carefully sorting his monster truck picture cards. "Ah," he said, "that'll be the wind having a say about something that needs a saying." Floyd hopped onto the window seat and peered out. "It's not in a blowery bluster," he observed, "but it's not resting with its slippers on either." Millie Moonbeam tilted her head, listening. The wind slipped down the chimney and out again, surprising the kettle with a rattle and clink of its lid. "It sounds busy," she said, "like it's got something to be a-doing of." That decided it. Coats were fetched, buttons were fastened, scarves were looped once, then twice, the ends tucked in neatly so they wouldn't go flapping off on their own adventures. When the door opened, the wind greeted them at once. It whispered through whiskers, lifting Berry's ears and making Caratina laugh as her scarf did indeed try to escape, over her shoulder in flips and snaps and woolen flaps. The sky above was pale and wide, streaked with long feathered clouds that seemed to be travelling somewhere important. "Well," said Roscoe, steadying his coat, "we'd best see what needs minding." The garden looked the same, and yet not. The apple tree was swaying gently, its leaves flashing silver and green as they turned their undersides to the light. The lavender bobbed and bowed. A single terracotta pot had tipped on its side, soil spilling out loose around its rim. Floyd crouched beside it at once. "That one's thinking about rolling," he said. Together they set it upright again, pressing the soil back into place with firm, careful pats. The wind sighed past them as though acknowledging their effort, then hurried on. Berry spotted the bird feeder swinging and spinning on its hook. "That'll make the seeds dizzy and fall out," he said. Roscoe fetched a length of twine from the shed and tied it to the feeder so it couldn't swing quite so far. It still moved, nothing could stop that, but now it rocked and swayed in a calmer, more predictable way. "That's better," said Millie Moonbeam. "It looks happier." Along the fence, a line of ribbons the bunnies had once tied for decoration danced and fluttered, snapping lightly like they were applauding. Caratina stood watching them, eyes bright. "They look like they're practicing," she said, "for a tiny dance, just for the sun and the clouds." "Just like the willow tree," Berry replied. The bunnies didn't rush. They wandered and moseyed. They noticed the dance of the wind. A newspaper that had been left on the bench lifted itself page by page. It rippled and rumpled, then folded neatly in half as the wind slid underneath it and smoothed it with the faintest touch and caress. A pine cone wobbled and hopped, spinning slowly, a corkscrew of brown. It bumped a patch of moss, rolled, stopped, then rolled again, changing its mind halfway across the path. High above, a pair of blue-black crows glided without flapping, letting the wind do the carrying. Roscoe stood still for a moment, paws folded on his tumblington. "Some days," he said quietly, "aren't for holding on too tightly." Floyd nodded. "They're for settling down and tucking in." By the time they reached the far end of the garden, their ears were pink with cool air and their cheeks pleasantly tingly. The wind followed them everywhere, nosing at pockets, lifting hems, tugging gently as if asking, "Are you ready yet?" "Ready for what?" Berry asked aloud. The wind didn't answer. It never did. Inside again, the cottage felt especially snug. The door clicked shut. The kettle was set back on the stove. A curtain billowed once, then settled as Roscoe closed the window. They hung their coats, smoothing them down. Outside, the wind continued its work, but now it felt farther away, still present, but politely kept to the other side of the glass. Millie Moonbeam fetched the box of candles and lanterns from the shelf. "Shall we light these?" she asked. "One at a time," said Roscoe. "No need to rush the evening." They lit a lantern and placed it on the mantel. The candle smelt faintly of beeswax and apples as the wick flickered into a wavering glow of bright orange. The flame steadied itself upright and calm, as though pleased to be indoors. Berry watched, enchanted by the light. "It's dancing, like the ribbons on the fence, but the wind can't blow in here," he said. "No," said Roscoe, "but the wind helped us notice how it can bring the garden to life." Dinner was simple and warm. Leek and potato soup, thick and creamy, with bread torn into soft pieces and dipped carefully. There was a small wheel of cheese they'd brought from Larry Hagglemouse down at the market, and a pot of tangy chutney. The wind rattled once at the back door, rapple-tap-tap, then sighed on, carrying the smell of crinkly leaves and distant chimneys with it. Later, when the sky outside deepened to blue-grey and the trees became darker shapes against it, the bunnies gathered in the sitting room. Floyd rolled his marbles back into their tin. Caratina closed her book and put it back on the shelf, close to the knitted night. Berry yawned, covering his mouth politely. Roscoe glanced toward the window. The branches were still moving, but more slowly now, as if the wind were winding down with the bunnies too. "Well," he said, "it's done a good day's work." "Yes," said Millie Moonbeam. "Everything feels refreshed." They sipped warm milk through curly straws, listening to the last soft sighs of the breeze as it passed the cottage and went on its way. Outside, leaves settled. Inside, downy paws found a friendship ear to hold. The world had moved, and then it had rested. All was snug. All was well. Night, night.